Coming up on 5 Minute News. Out west, Biden points to wildfires to push for big rebuild. Blinken pushes back on criticism of Afghan withdrawal. And climate change could see 200 million move by 2050. It's Tuesday, September 14. I'm Anthony Davis. President Joe Biden on Monday pointed up close to wildfires burning through the West to argue for his $3.5 trillion rebuilding plans, calling year-round fires and other extreme weather a climate change reality the nation can no longer ignore. Aiming to boost support for his big rebuilding plans, the president said every dollar spent on resilience would save $6 in future costs, and he said it must go beyond simply restoring damaged systems and instead ensure communities can withstand catastrophic weather that doesn't strike based on partisan ideology. The president's two-day Western swing comes at a crucial juncture for a central plank of his legislative agenda. House Democrats unveiled a sweeping proposal on Monday for tax hikes on corporations and the wealthy to fund President Joe Biden's $3.5 trillion rebuilding plan, as Congress speeds ahead to shape the far-reaching package that touches almost all aspects of domestic life. The proposed top tax rate would revert to a 39.6% on couples earning more than $450,000, and there would be a 3% tax on wealthier Americans making more than $5 million a year. For big businesses, the proposal would lift the 21% corporate tax rate to 26.5% on incomes beyond $5 million. In all, the tax hikes are in line with Biden's own proposals and would bring about the most substantive changes in the tax code since Republicans, with then-President Trump, slashed taxes in 2017. One Democratic senator vital to the bill's fate says the cost will need to be slashed to $1 to $1.5 trillion to win his support. Senator Joe Manchin also cautioned there was no way Congress will meet the late September goal for passage, given his current wide differences with liberal Democrats on how much to spend and how to pay for it. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushed back on Monday against harsh Republican criticism of the handling of the military withdrawal from Afghanistan, saying the Biden administration inherited a deal with the Taliban to end the war, but no plan for carrying it out. In a sometimes contentious hearing on Monday before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Blinken sought to blunt complaints from angry GOP lawmakers about the administration's response to the quick collapse of the Afghan government, and more specifically, the State Department's actions to evacuate Americans and others. Blinken blamed the Trump administration for the situation that President Joe Biden inherited in Afghanistan. "We inherited a deadline, we did not inherit a plan," he said, maintaining that the administration had done the right thing in ending the 20-year war. Republicans savaged the withdrawal process as a disaster and a disgrace, and while some Democrats allowed that the operation could have been handled better, many used their questions to heap criticism on former President Donald Trump. The chairman of the committee, New York Representative Gregory Meeks, urged his colleagues to keep politics out of their criticism, but he acknowledged there had been problems. Could things have been done differently? Absolutely, he said. Blinken tried to calmly deflect allegations of unpreparedness by noting that the Biden administration had inherited a U.S. Taliban peace deal from its predecessor, along with a languishing program to grant visas to Afghans who had worked for the U.S. government. Blinken, who had publicly predicted in June that a complete Taliban takeover would not happen from a Friday to a Monday, also tried to preempt criticism of the prediction by noting that no one in the US government expected the Afghan government to fall as quickly as it did. Climate change could push more than 200 million people to leave their homes in the next 3 decades and create migration hotspots unless urgent action is taken to reduce global emissions and bridge the development gap, a World Bank report has found. The second part of the Groundswell report, published on Monday, examined how the impacts of slow-onset climate change, such as water scarcity, decreasing crop productivity and rising sea levels, could lead to millions of what it describes as climate migrants by 2050 under 3 different scenarios with varying degrees of climate action and development. Under the most pessimistic scenario, with a high level of emissions and unequal development, the report forecasts up to 216 million people moving within their own countries across the 6 regions analysed. Those regions are Latin America, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Europe and Central Asia, South Asia and East Asia and the Pacific. In the most climate-friendly scenario, with a low level of emissions and inclusive sustainable development, the world could still see 44 million people being forced to leave their homes. In the worst-case scenario, Sub-Saharan Africa, the most vulnerable region due to desertification, fragile coastlines, and the population's dependence on agriculture, would see the most migrants, with up to 86 million people moving within national borders. While climate change's influence on migration is not new, it is often part of a combination of factors pushing people to move and acts as a threat multiplier. People affected by conflicts and inequality are also more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, as they have limited means to adapt. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.